So I've been on I was really just waiting to see, like, when am I going to like the character of Carrie Soto? So I was watching, and I was 87% through the audiobook and still not a fan of Carrie Soto. I think I really didn't start to like her maybe until the last 5 to 10% of the book. So it's hard to stay invested in a book where you don't like the character. And this is purposeful. The character's not supposed to be likable. Her nickname is a not so nice B word. And that's I understand the author's point here of this woman who is kind of a tough shell to crack, but I think she took it to an extreme. I think that it's possible to make a character who is both unlikable and also likable at the same time. So this is a book that if you are a fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books, particularly the ones set in this kind of same larger universe, Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, and Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, then yeah, you should give this book a try, but otherwise this is not one that I think you should read too. So the last book that I read this week was Inciting Joy, Essays by Ross Gay. And a couple weeks ago, the Library Association had an interview with him where a friend of his got together and they he interviewed him, and it was just really lovely. I listened to it over Zoom, and I really enjoyed the things that he had to say about the ways in which joy is incorporated in our life. The start of this book hooked me in so much, and it's so imaginative and just creates this amazing visual of what if people's sorrows were kind of like an actual physical manifestation, and just imagining this potluck party where people are bringing along their sorrows and the way in which this interaction would all occur. And it was so joyful and it was so fun, and I was just a few pages in thinking like, yes, this book is absolutely stunning and amazing. And there were so many points in this book where I absolutely loved it. He talks about being part of a project to build an orchard where the slogan is something like free fruit for all, and just this idea of community and coming together and all the work that goes into it. He talks about his experiences as a professor and the way in which he structured his classes. He does a lot of gardening. I've done a lot of gardening. He talks about his relationship with his parents. He talks about the death of his father. And it's just so fascinating the way he pulls this all together, the different chapters of different like incitements of joy. I really, really loved a lot of this book. It's a unique writing style. He does a lot of footnotes, which is kind of fun to see him be in the middle of a story while also telling a side story. I think it's the way that a lot of us share our favorite stories where, I'm come home from work and I'm telling my husband one thing and then I'm like, oh, wait, but this other story that you have to hear too. And I liked it. It was cool. It worked for me. I will say there were some chapters I just couldn't get into. And these were mostly the chapters about sports where he's talking about experiences playing football, basketball. He's using a lot of references to sports that just weren't my jam. And so I was reading that there are some kind of mixed reviews for people, that people either felt like they loved this book or they struggled with this book. And I think if you can find commonalities with him, this book is absolutely going to be for you. So for me, experiencing the loss of a parent, being someone who likes to garden, being someone who's in the world of education, being someone who's experienced grief, I felt that this book resonated for me on so very many levels. I thought the writing style, again, was just really stunning and captivating. And, from the very beginning, though, he notes that there's this intertwining of joy and sorrow. And I think the title could perhaps be misleading for some. Inciting Joy, this idea that they're going to be picking up a manual of like all the ways to spark joy in your life. That's not what this is. This is definitely a memoir where he's kind of digging deep and looking at all of the ways that you can find joy. I started reading Book of Delights, which is a book that he had written previously where it's done in journal format, where he's writing about the delightful things of his day over the course of a year. And I think this kind of strikes me as sort of similar to that he's talking through things, his experiences, and what within them are joyful, and yet, he's not laying out a manual for you. This is not a self-help book. This is not a way to start your 2023 off, dealing with trying to figure out how to spark joy in your life. But it was a really nice look at his life and how he's navigated difficult experiences and managed to find joy and deeper understanding. He does pretty immense reflection on things that have happened to him, the way that he's processed things. I like the way that he analyzes his relationship with his dad who's passed away, being able to acknowledge how things changed over time, kind of the good parts, the bad parts, looking at it more holistically, just really nice. So I would definitely read this too if any of the topics that I mentioned that are in it are something that interests you. If you're interested in one of those topics, he definitely is going to be able to grab and hold your attention. Even for me, there were parts of the sports chapters that were interesting, just not as compelling as some of the ones that were closer to my shared interests with him. And I would also say, read this too if you're looking to maybe do some own personal reflection on your life. He's not going to give you exactly the tools of this is how you do it, but he is going to perhaps inspire you to consider how elements of your life maybe do have joy in ways that don't seem obvious. I also had my first book that I wasn't able to finish this year. And actually, this is relatively rare for me not to finish a book. Usually, once I'm partway into a book, I feel committed. And even if I'm not really enjoying it, I keep going. But this book, I just could not stand and I put it down. And I really actually was surprised because this book has such good ratings. So the book is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And I know a lot of people love it. It has hundreds of thousands of reviews on Goodreads, really high ratings, but it also seems to be a book that's kind of polarizing. And for me, I just absolutely could not stand the main love interest, Knox. And really, I just trying to put it into the perspective of how would I respond if this was someone who I had just met who was treating me this way. So the kind of main protagonist of the series, she meets him and he is immediately demanding that she get in his car. When she's refusing to get in his car, he grabs her coffee from her. He puts the coffee in the car and basically forces her in. And then he's telling her where she needs to stay. And all of it just feels very much like if a stranger was doing this to me, this would raise so many red flags. And I get that the Arthur is trying to create this idea of like, here's this man who's strong and he's going to protect her. And I know that that can be appealing to many people, but that's not what I'm looking for in a romance. I'm looking for a guy who shows up and is like, hey, tell me what you need. I trust you and your instincts. I trust you to be able to know what's best for yourself. How can I support you in that? Do you need me to help you find a place to stay? Do you need to just hang back while you kind of figure things out on your own? What can I do for you? And I tried to stick through it, but immediately, if that was my friend and she texted me like, hey, this guy's demanding that I get in his car and he's going to take me where I need to go, I would absolutely say 100% do not get in that strange, weird man's car. The book just didn't really get any better from there. So it was such a disappointment. I had it on hold at the library for such a long time, and I had been greatly looking forward to it. And I think this is just going to be one of those books where, I don't typically give bad reviews, but no, this one was just big no from me.